It's 2:10 in the morning, and the city is breathing through the cracked window of a beat checker cab on 9th Avenue, July 1977. The kind of heat that doesn't break after dark. It just leans on you, wet and close, smelling of garbage and asphalt, and somebody's fire 2 blocks over. The meter's ticking. There's a roll of singles in your sock and a tire iron under the seat. Because this is the summer, a man with a .44 is shooting people who look like they're in love, and every fare that climbs in behind you is a coin flip you can't see. The radio crackles. A voice you've never put a face to, Central you call her, the woman who runs the night from a back room in Long Island City, tells you there's a flag down at 42nd, going to the Bronx. You don't take the Bronx at 2 a.m., nobody does. But the rent was due Tuesday, and it's Thursday now, so you key the mic. You got it. You drop the flag. You pull into traffic that never quite stops in this town. 8 million people stacked on top of each other, half of them asleep, half of them dangerous, and all of them, sooner or later, needing a ride. Nobody's waiting up for you. Nobody has in years. This is the city. This is the work. And this is your whole life. Out here, behind this wheel, you're a king. You own the night shift. You know this island better than the men who built it. Every light that's about to turn, every block to avoid, every back way through the park when the avenues lock up. The bankers and the Broadway crowd and the tourists with their maps held upside down. They don't move through the city. You move them. You're the bloodstream of the place, 11 at night to 9 in the morning, threading 4,000 pounds of Detroit steel through gaps a sober man wouldn't try sober. They get in scared, and they get out home, and not one of them ever knows your name. Out here, you matter. There's a power in it a man on the sidewalk never tastes. The whole roaring city pouring past your windshield, yours every block of it. But it wasn't always like this. 12 years ago, you were nobody. A kid off the boat from nowhere, with a borrowed jacket and $11 and an accent the dispatchers laughed at. So let me take you back. Let me show you how a nobody ended up out here, alone, at 2 in the morning, holding 8 million strangers in his hands. And what it cost him to get there. The Bronx, 1965. Your father came to this country with a strong back and a belief that strong backs got rewarded here. He gave 30 years to the garment district, pushing a hand truck through 7th Avenue, hauling other men's dresses up other men's freight elevators, coming home with his shirt soaked through and his hands curled, like he was still gripping the cart in his sleep. He believed in the deal. You work, you keep your head down, the city takes care of you. And then the city went broke. 1975. You remember the headline. Everybody who lived through it remembers the headline. The president telling New York to drop dead, splashed across the front page like a slap. The factories had already been leaving for years, south and overseas, the lofts going dark 1 floor at a time. The Bronx itself was on fire, landlords torching their own buildings for the insurance, whole blocks of it burning at night so steady you stopped turning to look. Your old man got laid off at 58 from the only work he'd ever known. And he sat at the kitchen table with his curled hands flat on the oilcloth, and he had no idea what he'd done wrong. He'd done everything right. That was the part that broke him. Your buddies took the jobs that were left. Stock boy, security guard, the post office if they were lucky, and got old at 23. You couldn't do it. Every night you'd lie in that hot back room and hear the city out the window, sirens and horns, and somewhere down on the avenue, the long sigh of a cab pulling away with its light off, headed somewhere that wasn't here. And something in your chest would pull toward it. Because that sound wasn't a taxi. That sound was a door, and it was standing open. You just had to be hungry enough, or crazy enough, to walk through it before the whole city finished burning down around you. You ran the numbers on a napkin in a diner on Tremont. A man who drives a fleet cab, leases it by the shift from a garage, he makes a living. Barely. You bring the car back at dawn. You settle up with the garage. You hand them their cut off the top, whether you had a good night or got stiffed on every fare, and you keep what's left, which is never much. But the cash. The cash was the thing. Every fare paid you in green, right then folded into your hand, and a slice of that green never had to find its way onto any book the government ever saw. A sharp man working the right shifts, the airport runs, the after-theater rush, the nights nobody else wanted. That man could clear in a week what your father cleared in a month of breaking his back on 7th Avenue. And there was more. Up at the top of it all, there was a thing called a medallion. A little tin shield bolted to the hood that said, "The city lets you own a piece of this." That you weren't renting the night anymore. You owned it. A man with his own medallion kept everything. No garage, no cut. And the medallion itself only ever went up year after year, better than any bank, better than any stock, a poor man's way to buy a piece of New York and have it grow while he slept. You sat in that vinyl booth and you did the math twice, 3 times, because it seemed too good to be real. There was just one catch, and it was a wall. The license, the lease, the bond, the bribe to the right man at the garage to even get a steady car. It all cost money you didn't have. You had $11, so you did the only thing a hungry man with nothing to lose can do. You signed on at a fleet garage in Long Island City, took the worst car and the worst shift they had, and you bet your whole life that you were tougher than this city. And the garage manager handed you the keys and a trip sheet and wished you luck. They always wish you luck, because they know something about this town that you won't learn for years. His name was Vince. 40 years on the seat and a face like a catcher's mitt. Hemorrhoids he'd cuss about at the gas pump and a heart he'd never once admit to. He'd been hacking since before you were born. Knew every doorman and every dispatcher and every cop on the take, from the Battery to the Bronx, and for reasons he never explained, he decided to keep you alive. He didn't have to. Most of the old hacks would have let a green kid get rolled in East New York and called it tuition. But Vince took one look at you holding that wheel like it might bite, and he saw something, maybe himself 40 years back off some other boat, and he took you on. He taught you the things that aren't in any rule book. How to read a fare before they got in, the ones who'd run on you, the ones who'd pull a blade, the drunk who'd puke, and the drunk who'd tip 50. How to never, ever let a man sit behind you if something felt wrong. Make him take the far door where you could watch his hands in the mirror. How to keep 2 trip sheets, the one you showed the hack bureau, neat and legal and missing half your night, and the real one in your head that knew exactly how much green was in your sock. How to take the West Side Highway at 3 a.m. with the lights timed so you never touched the brake, the whole island sliding by black and glittering on your right. "Kid," he told you one night, idling outside Grand Central with the rain coming down, "this city don't love you. Don't you ever make the mistake of loving it back. It'll take everything you got and ask you for more, and the day you can't drive no more, it won't even remember your face. You use it. You don't love it." You held your first big night's take, rolled up in your fist, more cash than your father ever carried at one time in his life, and right there, idling in the rain with the meter off and the city hissing around you, the night sank its hooks in you. You didn't feel it go in. You never do. But you were already hers. They stopped laughing at the accent. You got good the way only a man who needs it gets good. You learned the city the way other men learned scripture. You knew which lights on Park went green in a wave if you hit 46th at exactly the right second. You knew the back way out of every theater before the curtain even dropped, so you were sitting at the curb when the rich came pouring out into the rain looking for a miracle. And you were the miracle, and miracles tip. You knew the airport game cold, how to read the dispatcher at LaGuardia, when to deadhead out empty because a Manhattan fare was worth 2 of anything coming back. You worked the after hours, the disco crowd spilling out at 4, the night shift nurses, the bartenders going home with their aprons full of singles. You learned the language of the street, what it meant when a doorman raised 2 fingers, what a flash of a building's lobby light meant, which corners to never stop on no matter who was flagging. And there was Central, that voice on the two-way. The woman in the back room in Long Island City who ran the radio calls all night long. For years you ran with her. She'd steer you to the good flags and steer you clear of the addresses where a driver had got hurt. And on the dead nights, 3, 4 in the morning, when the whole city felt like a held breath, the 2 of you would just talk about nothing, about everything. 2 people keeping each other company across a town gone quiet. You never met her, never once saw her face. That's this city. The closest soul in your whole life is a voice on a wire you'll never shake hands with. And then came the night of the blackout. July of '77. The whole grid went down at once. All 5 boroughs swallowed in the dark. And the city you knew turned into something out of an old book. Stores coming apart, fires up and down the avenues, people carrying sofas down the middle of Broadway by the light of the flames. Every other cab fled for the garage. You didn't. You ran fares all night through the dark, by feel, by memory, by the map burned into your skull, because there were people out there terrified and trying to get home, and they paid double, triple, anything just to be moved through the chaos by a man who knew the way. You made a month's money in a night. And somewhere in the middle of it, Central's voice came over the radio, steady as a lighthouse, calling out which streets were burning, keeping her drivers alive in the dark. You weren't scared. God help you, you'd never felt so alive. A few years on, you'd done the unthinkable. Scrimped and borrowed and signed your name to a note and bought your own medallion, your shield on your hood. You owned a piece of New York now. The nobody off the boat had made himself a king. And kings, you were about to learn, are just the men with the farthest left to fall. But the city takes its cut. It always takes its cut. First it took your body, 1 piece at a time, the back from 16 hours folded into a seat built by men who never sat in one. The gut from diner coffee and cigarettes and meals eaten with 1 hand at a red light. You'd climb out at dawn walking like your own father, those curled hands, that bent neck, and you'd see him in the gas station window and look away. Then it took your nerve. Because driving a cab in this city in these years was not safe work. It was the most dangerous job in America, and everybody in it knew it. A hack got robbed somewhere in this town every single night, and a few times a year one got killed for the cash in his sock. You knew 2 men it happened to. One you'd shared 1,000 cups of garage coffee with, found slumped over his wheel on a side street in Brooklyn, over the $40 in his pocket. You went to the funeral. You went back to work that night, because the medallion note doesn't pause for the dead. and it came for the things that mattered more than your back or your nerve. You'd married a good woman, and you were never home. You drove nights, so you'd be there days, and then you slept days. And the years went by, and your kids learned to be quiet in the afternoon, because that's when their father slept. A stranger behind a bedroom door. Your girl had a recital you swore on your life you'd make, and you fell asleep at the wheel in the garage lot and missed it. And the look on her face when you finally got home went in like a blade and stayed. You told yourself it was all for them. The apartment, the medallion, the better life than the garment district ever gave your father. But the truth was simpler, and it was worse. You weren't out there for them. You were out there because the front seat of that cab at 3 a.m. was the only place in the whole roaring world that ever made you feel like you were worth a damn. And a man cannot say a thing like that out loud. Not to his wife, not to his kids, not even to himself. So you just dropped the flag and you drove. It was a January night, slow and cold, the kind where you take a fare you shouldn't because money's money. 2 of them flagged you at an after-hours place on the Lower East Side, going up to Washington Heights. You knew before they shut the doors. You felt it the way Vince taught you to feel it. 20 years too late to back out. Both of them in the back seat now, and one of them leaning forward into the gap where no partition was because the city hadn't made them mandatory yet. That was still years off and 100 dead drivers away. You felt the cold ring of it against your neck before you heard the voice. Give it up. All of it. You gave it up. The sock roll, the day's take, the watch your wife gave you. Your hands flat on the wheel where they could see them, doing everything Vince ground into you. Make no sudden move. The money's not worth your life. The money is never worth your life. And they took it, and they ran into the dark off Dykeman Street and left you sitting there shaking. Alive, your heart going like a flat tire on a rim. You keyed the mic. Because that's what you do. You call it in to warn the next driver. And Central's voice came back soft and steady, the way it had for 20 years, telling you to breathe, telling you to come on in, telling you you were okay. You weren't. You sat at the curb in Washington Heights with the heater ticking, and you understood finally, all the way down, what Vince meant in the rain outside Grand Central all those years ago. The city don't love you. It never did. You were just a body it hadn't collected yet. That spring, Vince's bad heart finally quit him in a walk-up in Astoria, a mile from the garage. You couldn't make the funeral. You were out on a fare, of course you were, because the freight does not stop for the dead, not even Vince. And somewhere on the Triborough that night, you keyed up the radio and said his name into the dark, just once, to nobody, and let go of the button, and there was only static. Then the world changed, and nobody asked you. You'd done everything right. The right way, the hard way, the legal way. You owned your medallion, free and clear by now, and it had become exactly the thing they promised it would be. Your whole retirement, your nest egg, your one good bet that paid off. By the 2000s, that little tin shield was worth more than a house in most of America. $1 million some years for the right to drive a cab in New York. Banks chased you to lend against it. Everybody said it could only go up. It was the safest money in the city. And then the phones came. Cars you ordered with an app, run by a company out in California that had never bought a single medallion, never followed a single rule you'd bled 20 years to follow, never paid the bond or passed the test, or sat in the rain outside Grand Central, learning the trade. They flooded the streets, 10 of them, then 10,000, then 100,000, undercutting every fare, eating billions in losses just to take the city, because the men who ran them had more money than the city itself, and all the time in the world to wait you out. The fares dried up, and the medallion, the safest money in New York, your whole life's savings, hammered into one little shield. It didn't just stop going up. It fell off a cliff. $1 million to nothing in a few short years. Men you'd driven beside for 30 years. Men who'd borrowed against their shields to send a kid to college or buy a little house in Queens, woke up owing the bank a fortune on a thing that was suddenly worth almost nothing. You read about some of them in the paper. The ones who couldn't take it. The drivers who'd done everything right and lost it all anyway, and decided they couldn't start over at 65. You understood there was no enemy here you could even fight. No stick-up man you could see coming in the mirror. Just a signature in a far-off city, and a market that had quietly decided that men like you, independent, stubborn, free, were a thing New York was finished with. So you did the one thing you swore on your father's curled hands you'd never do. Underwater on a medallion that wasn't worth the metal it was stamped on. The savings gone, the knees gone, you downloaded the app. You signed up to drive for the very company that had buried you. In your own car now, a number on somebody else's screen, the rate set to the penny by a kid in California who'd never gripped a wheel in anger and never would. No medallion, no shield on the hood, no central on the radio. Just a phone on the dash telling you where to turn in a flat little voice, as if you didn't know this city better than the satellite ever could. Back to zero. Worse than zero. Zero with a note still hung around your neck like a stone, on a shield gathering dust in a drawer. The king was dead. The man who was left just tapped the screen, took the ride, and rolled. But here's the thing nobody tells you about men like you. You kept going. Of course you did. It was the only thing you ever truly knew how to do. The cash was gone, and the pride was gone, and the kingdom you'd built one folded dollar at a time was scattered across 100 bankruptcy filings, with the ink still wet. But the city was still there every night, hot and broke and beautiful and waiting. And so were you. Still out at 3 in the morning, still moving 8 million strangers home through the dark, still the bloodstream of the place, even now, even broken, even when the city had long since stopped seeing you at all. Get in a cab today. Go ahead. It's clean now. There's a screen in the back, playing ads at the fair, loud, and another screen up front watching you. A camera pointed at your face, counting your blinks, flagging a manager in another state if your eyes shut too long at a light. There's an app that knows where you are every second, that rates you 1 to 5 stars like a diner rates a plate of eggs, that can fire you at dawn with a notification and no hand to shake. The partition's there now, too. The bulletproof plastic between you and the back. Mandated at last. 100 dead drivers too late to do you any good. But there it is, sealing you off from the only company the night ever gave you. And out there on those same avenues, you ran blind through the blackout, holding the terrified city in your hands. They're testing cars that drive themselves. No driver. No king, no man awake at 3 in the morning who knows which light's about to turn. Just sensors and software, and a great long silence, because the radio's quiet now. There's no central. There's no voice in the back room in Long Island City, steering you clear of the bad address, talking you down off a robbery, keeping you company across a town gone still. You drove with that voice for 20 years, and you never met her. And one day, the company shut the radios off for good, and you never even got to say goodbye. You can run this whole island now, river to river, all night long, and never once hear another human voice that isn't coming out of a phone. You were the last of them. You just didn't know it yet. So here's the question, friend, and only you can answer it. Was it worth it? All those hard miles, river to river, 10,000 nights of them. The back that never healed. The girl whose recital you slept through. The friend you buried on a Tuesday and went back to work that same night. The voice on the radio you loved for 20 years and never got to thank. The medallion you bled for, that was going to be the whole point of it, scattered to nothing by men who never once drove through the rain. Knowing all of it, every fare, every mile, would you do it again? You already know that you would. Because some men were never built for the time clock or the quiet apartment or the pension that comes in the mail. Some men are only ever truly alive at 2 in the morning, alone in the dark, with the meter running and 8 million sleeping strangers and the whole roaring city pouring past the windshield. There's every block of it. This was your life, the whole of it. And God help you, you would not trade a single hard mile of it.
The yellow lines are fading in the rearview mirror now. This ancient highway is quieted its roar. I've driven through the shadows of the only life I knew, and I won't be returning anymore. So farewell to the endless sky and dust upon the breeze, to every town that whispered in the night. The open road is folding like a map of memories, and fading out of sight. Just a single quiet guitar. Goodbye to the road.